I know. I know what you're thinking. Holy shit, what the fuck am I looking at? How's it going, guys? It's me, Wise Old Dog. I know, here in the flesh. I decided, you know what? I've had this shitty ass camera for a little while, and I had no clue what to do with it up until now. Not even a worthwhile investment. So, here I am. I've got it all set up here. Really don't understand what I'm doing here. Nonetheless, I decided that I'm going to use this setup for the next FAF commentary that I intended to do a little while ago, and I wasn't sure on exactly what the next thing to hop off of it was going to be, so I decided, since that this topic was coming up rather recently, I guess this is the perfect opportunity. Isn't that right? Yeah. Today's FAF commentary is going to be entailing what could be described as a fork, as a number of individuals are pretty fed up with the way that the state of the entirety of FAF is, which can include, but not limited to, the shitty FAF client, the lack of leadership, and the potential issues with ownership of FAF with Visionik, as well as Shio just being AFK, because what can you do, right? These certain individuals have been set up to go and change certain things about the community right now and the way that the leadership has been going, so I figured I might as well commentate and get some information to cover for other people to get invested in and see if this is something that could affect the community entirely. Now, I wouldn't normally go on the forums myself or Slack in this case, but since our dear and beloved forum anime show has recently been canceled, I might as well take over and do him a favor on that regard. Thanks, FAF moderation. So let's get this started. So to preface this, I was invited into this group, this resistance, or coup, as you would put it, and part of the reason for that was because of my displeasure or discontent with the way that the FAF client is, especially that it lacked, as I said in my first commentary video, any content or anything valuable to keep it going. There's so many features stripped out of it and so much missing that when I was invited into this, I thought, well, the prospects for this seem pretty nice. They're trying to bring back certain features and to make quality improvements. Now, the details to the political aspect of this regarding Shio and Visionik being in control and apparently delaying certain things, I'll be putting up an image as far as the things that, the goals and aspirations that they have towards this effort or this fork, which is intended to make certain changes with the leadership and whatnot. Now, as far as what I can tell, this is a last resort sort of last-ditch effort in attempts to see if Visionik can comply with certain changes and if they can come to a compromise. Should this not be the case, it's at least to my understanding that these individuals intend to create their own client, apparently, and by this token, their intention is to bring back these sort of features and adapt certain things, such as using a Java client and whatnot, and using ICE testing, so on and so forth, to utilize as a alternative to the current Python legacy client. I believe I said that right. I can't say that I'm necessarily a member of this group, however, because Visionik don't ban me, but the reason I was sort of intrigued by this little group was because, well, the promises they made. Whether or not this is going to come to fruition and whatnot, I'm on the side of the FAF community. I believe that regardless what direction it goes, if this thing fails or succeeds in their efforts to change certain things, I would be standing behind that for the sake of our community. If we can do any of these things that we say and be able to improve certain things, I'm all about it. But if they really don't, then I don't really care. I'm simply in this to see what we can do to change the current climate of FAF. So this little band, this party, seemed to gather quite a few people, some developers and contributors of the sorts, and they started to get around to certain people, but they kept everything mostly secluded and secret for the time being. They didn't want their efforts and their project to go underway in public until they were ready and comfortable to do so, which kept them under the prying eyes of Shio and the likes until, of course, said person did uncover their efforts and Eventually, he had to go up to Visionik, and some time passed until, well, the current Slack history that we have now. And Visionik was quiet for quite some time. There hadn't been anything heard from him since, I believe, the Steam linking. And so people waited as this group was uncovered, and they waited to hear back from him, and we can start from there. So right away, Visionik comes in, and he's laying hands already. There's no good morning kisses or anything of the sort. And with this, he unfortunately just goes straight into what he's about to do as a response to this sort of movement here, posting a 2,500 bounty for some tasks to bring the Python client up to par, which, much to the dismay and contempt of some of the other users who have openly expressed that we're moving on from that client, Visionik isn't having it, and he's well aware of what's going on. This starts an interesting little shitfest going on where Visionik seems to right away interpose that this is the call that he's making, and there's no questions asked about it, which is sort of a odd approach to this, since there was really no efforts to straight away communicate what's going on and sort of de-escalate the situation. He just goes right in with an alternative task, and there's really no competition with it. I mean, this guy has tons of money behind him, and, well, we all are well aware that Visionik is indeed the sole owner of FAF, which this conversation spurs on into a series of different viewpoints and conversations, which can be really taken either way as good or bad. Now, as this continues on, it goes quite a bit into some of the issues with people's trust into the leadership that Visionik has imposed as a result of certain actions like this. There's certain things, especially with the way that Steam linking was enforced and how there was very little options given as far as what could be done about that. A lot of us don't really understand what is behind the mindset that Visionik had for why he did the thing he did. And all we can really attest to is the fact that, by his words, he and his lawyer had to come up with a decision regarding with this. And a lot of people interjected that certain things about it could have been avoided with certain alternatives and suggestions as to the ownership that Visionik solely has over FAF. And it seems to go on this way in this conversation, and not much can really be said, I believe, as far as what we know about how much Visionik's hands were tied regarding that decision. And really doesn't explain a whole lot. It doesn't help in his case to really justify his responses to not allowing certain things to go on and continue. Something really interesting to point out, too, as this continues along, is something to do with the way that Visionik perceives Downlord. And it's really interesting and just fascinating cascade of just, I don't trust Downlord. I don't trust Downlord. I don't resent the man, but I don't trust Downlord. Which really does not at all come across very well, especially as it goes on into this with, we're going in circles, I don't trust Downlord. And there's nothing really he says to really explain his position as to that. It comes across as, it's like listening to a Phantom player explain that he can't really rely on anybody, he can't trust anybody if they're an actual Phantom. It's absolutely absurd when you read into this and you see the way that Visionik sort of repeats himself. And even though the other individuals seem to point out certain flaws and issues with Visionik's own past, Visionik doesn't really seem to assert himself as far as his evidence and reason to not want to work with Downlord in this regard, which is somewhat confusing and frustrating, because it's almost, in a way, dodging sort of the main issues that these contributors are explaining and what they want to accomplish as with this fork, or what they want to compromise with Visionik regarding these issues. Another thing that I feel is worth pointing out too is, Visionik does seem to occasionally pull out the really nice weird flex, but okay. As he really points out that he can do a lot more, especially with the money that he has at his disposal to do more for the FAF community, which in this certain way, I could see how that's really good in the sense that if he really wanted to, he could do a whole lot more in supporting this project and getting more people involved and do more work done. But unfortunately, especially with the way that he sort of interposes this sort of idea that you guys are rather you guys are rather disposable, and he could hire a team that could really end up just replacing anything you guys do. And well, that might be all right to a certain extent to have actual professionals working on this sort of thing. It doesn't really put off a good sentimental attitude towards contributors in our community, especially as these other people seem to point out that it's really not inviting, especially with the way that he sort of suggests that they're replaceable. There's really no worth to what you have. If you leave, then I get someone else to do it. And while that's definitely an alright idea, it's also very hostile and not really appreciative for those people who spend their free time trying to do the work needed to get the game in this project, this client going. And it's not really all that fun if you are one of those developers, which I could see why is frustrating, even though I could see why Visionik would take that stance if he believes that it's an all-out war against him, even though it's not. So, really a weird response, and not one that I would really commend Visionik for. I think he could really change his attitude on this and just sort of realize that, especially as later on he points out that he does value the contributions, he had to really backpedal on that because of the way that he presented his statements. So Visionik's not really making a good case for himself in this conversation as it goes along, even though to a certain extent you have to wonder exactly how much of this can really be held against him. There's a whole lot of other menial shit that goes on in between these conversations as well, mostly pertaining to, are you trustworthy? Are you actually a good person or a bad person? Things that we're not really going to be interested in discussing. However, we do get into a little bit more of things actually being resolved, even though there's no real material being presented as to whether or not things actually happen. Because eventually, the two gentlemen eventually come to understand that they need to discuss this and work this out on their own. And so the Downlord and Visionik, as they go along, it would seem that they're in a better standing position to figure out how they're going to proceed with this situation, especially in regards to how they can move forward and get some changes done and actually get things going. And so we'll find out, especially because as of posting this, there hasn't been very much information regarding any updates. Did things end up working out? Are we getting any sort of progress going? And that is mostly the issue that we have now is, are we going to have a fork, or are we going to actually get our people going and figure out how we're going to move forward? Are we going with the Java client? Is the bounty still up for getting these people in and working on our client getting up to date? Who knows? At the end of the day, everyone wants to know, though, if we'll be getting any progress going. And that's what I want, too. Because it doesn't matter, at the end of the day, just like who's in charge of what. As long as the people that we have in our community aren't trying to exploit our players, they're not trying to bring us down and, ruin the experience for us. We just want to see things happen, especially as it goes along. We don't need any, dick measuring contest here. We want what's best for everyone here. And so, at the end of the day, who knows? We'll find out eventually if these guys work things out, but if it becomes a fork, then that'll be very interesting. We just have to wonder if this will actually make something happen. Things could go stale from here on. People may not actually be that motivated, and it might be dropped after a while. Who knows? But we still want for something to happen, and this could be a good kind of conflict. The last time that I think we've seen Visionik come out like this is probably since the Zeb era, but not like I guess if you include like the Steam linking shit or whatever. But regardless, that's what's going on with the fork as of now, as of posting this. So yeah, I don't fucking know what else to say. It seems though that if we do get things going, we should keep our eyes open and be informed, see if we can contribute in any way, and hopefully we'll make things continue and keep the ball rolling. I would highly suggest, especially as someone as improper and informal as me, I would suggest going out and doing your own research on this. Ask around, talk to the people who are actively involved in this, get some links going. Check out the I'll be posting links to some important things and bits as far as the information and resources. And well, that's it from me. And hopefully this hasn't been too unbearable for you, gazing longingly into my eyes. And we'll see you again, all right? Take care, guys.